Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Interview with a Roadie. This is the series where I get to sit down with artists, band members, other roadies, and anybody else in the music industry, and we just have conversations about whatever we want. And in today's episode, I was super excited about this one. I got the chance to spend some one-on-one time with Ben Savage of Whitechapel. Now, these guys are celebrating the recent release of their latest album, Kin. And in this conversation, we talked a lot about that album, the sound that they were going for, the sound that they produce, how they recorded it, and a lot of other stuff, man. We talked about the evolution of their sound, especially from their last couple albums going into this. We talked about the gear that he uses, how special it is for them to hear that people connect to their music, and how special it was to Ben to have his wife involved in this album. I really enjoyed myself with this one. I hope you guys enjoy it too. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this next 45-minute conversation between myself and Ben Savage. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I have an awesome guest joining us. Welcome, Ben Savage from Whitechapel. How are you doing, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Doing great.
Good.
As you can tell, I just showered, so.
No, it's great, man. It's funny because we just, for people that are watching, we just discovered we both live in Nashville. I thought you were like somewhere else and the time zones were weird, and I was like, oh, that's wild.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. Small world.
Yeah.
The music industry is kind of based here. You know, a lot of buses. Bus companies come from Nashville. A lot of everything else. There's just a big it's built in to the city.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, that's like, I came down here 11 or 12 years ago, specifically for that reason. I was working for a band and I was tired of driving from Chicago to Nashville every time we started a tour. But, did you specifically decide to just come out here or was it like specifically band motivated that you wanted to have somebody here?
No, it wasn't band motivated at all. It was pretty much for my wife, Jill, like she's in like, makeup and hair and that business. And like, there's not really that much of a, I guess, lucrative, business going on in Knoxville. Nashville's like more that they'll pay money for, it's whether video shoots or weddings or, just
even
anything.
Just photo shoots for a lot of the artists that are in town, man. I can't tell you how many times I get ready to do like media stuff with one of the artists I work for here, and they're just makeup artists, wardrobe people, all that stuff just in the mix too. So
yeah, she's done Dave Mustaine's makeup.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm actually glad you just brought your wife up, because one of the things that I found interesting when I was watching a couple of the new videos, I always watch credits whenever I do music videos because I'm into the production side of things. And I saw Jillian Savage pop up, and I just kind of put two and two together, and I was like, oh, that's gotta be Ben's wife. Like, it has to be. And then somebody left me a comment and said that. And then I also saw that she did the album artwork. And I thought that was so wild. Like, did that kind of, I'm interested in how that happened, because my wife has kind of done some graphic art stuff for me for the channel and stuff like that. Has she always been involved in a lot of Whitechapel stuff, or is that something that just kind of happened?
No, not really. Yeah, it just kind of happened because like we weren't happy with, the art that we were getting for Kin. It wasn't like really hitting the spot. And, I knew Jill was a great artist because she went to, she's like scholared in it. She went to University of Tennessee for drawing. And so nice. She knows about all like different paints and, just like what works together, just stuff that you need to know if, you're putting a brush to canvas, I had an idea for what the album should look like. But I just needed someone to paint it, and she said she'd do it. And and it's really cool because she did like pointillism work, and she's never really done that before. But she usually does watercolor, so she kind of applied what she knows in like watercolor and mixing paints, and applied it to pointillism. So it came out with something really original, which was very cool.
So,
yeah, there's one of hers behind me.
oh, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick, man. You know, obviously when artwork gets transferred onto vinyls and CDs and stuff, it's a reprint, but like the original painting she did, how long did that take? That had to have taken a lot of time.
Yeah, it took about a month. We're sitting. I'm
Wow.
sitting on this couch I was just sitting on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took about a month, about 8 hours a day for a month. But yeah, here it is. It's
Wow.
like hanging up in our house. But
Wow, man. That's a
yeah.
lot of time, especially with the pointillism stuff. I mean, the first time I saw that, I was like, that's very, very detailed.
So
Yeah.
that's like the album art, and then it's kind of it's really close.
Yeah. I mean, that's super impressive. And how rad is that for you, being a band member and you get to have your wife like, do something directly for the band?
Yeah, it's great because she could be stoked with us.
Yeah.
Like on previous albums and stuff. She was happy for me, but it's like now she could kind of like share in the happiness more.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Get like she's like more. She's interested in like seeing reviews and interested about what people say. More about the album now that she's involved.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, man.
So that's cool.
So speaking more about the album, I absolutely love it, first of all. I guess for you it would be probably interesting to know like the kind of backstory of how I led into this. Like, I always knew who Whitechapel was for years and years, but I think the first time I actually listened to you guys was probably around the time our Endless War came out. Because working in the music industry, I've been so secluded to the bands I've been touring with that I never really discovered like new stuff. I was familiar with the bands in the same scene we were with and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
one of the monitor engineers that we had on the Dustin Lynch gig I was telling you about used to work for like Veil of Maya and Cannibal Corpse and stuff. And one day he's like, "You're into Whitechapel, right?" And I just like, "Man, I know who they are and I've just never listened." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's right up your alley. Go for it." So 2015 was about the time I discovered the band, and then I discovered the older stuff. I somehow missed the Valley. I don't know
Mm.
what happened. And then when I heard that Kin was coming out, I was like, okay, I got to go back and listen to the Valley. And then when I found out the backstory of everything and how the lyrics were written out and musically and stuff like that, it blew me away. To say that I went through a phase in like the last month where I was like obsessed with that CD is kind of an understatement. I mean, I've had to have listened to it 50 times in like the last month.
Wow.
So leading into Kin, I was super excited to kind of see the further evolution of what you guys were doing. And I think it's such a great album from start to finish in the sense that like I think I saw a quote from you before this album that said, while it's very much a metal album, there are a lot more rock influences and vibey parts. And I felt every ounce of that. Like there are parts in that CD where it's just like the need to be brutally heavy isn't there. And you guys do the vibe parts so fantastic.
Mhm.
So
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.
yeah, yeah. So I always like to hear from band members like the evolution of the band because it's like obviously you guys made a name for yourself just being just heavy as hell. But at what point does it get to does it get to where you're like, all right, let's start throwing some different influences in here and just evolving our sound to what we want to do with it? Like, did that
Hmm.
just feel natural to you guys, or was it like something needs to change for something?
Yeah, it came from necessity, really, because it's a daunting task to write an album,
Mm-hmm.
especially of dense, heavy metal, material. So, and we've been doing it for a long time, and after a certain amount of time, it's like you don't want to do something you've already done before. So that's when like the kind of invention comes in, where you kind of like try to flip it, just try different things, and I guess listen to artists that kind of like help bridge that gap, and I don't know. And we've always been like going off feeling too with like a riffs, and it hasn't changed a bit. Like, how we write an album. We just kind of just go through everything, and then, everybody individually brings to the table, and we all get in a room and listen to it. And, whatever connects with us, makes us feel something, makes us have a conversation, feel like, we have something there. So we just kind of go off that. I mean, it really started with Mark of the Blade. We had two songs with like more melodic singing on it, Decennium and Bring Me Home. And and Phil sang beautifully on them. And it just kind of opened a whole new world for us, as long as the riffs are dark and lives in that like, world where, that's kind of heavy, just low world that, we kind of reside in.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it tastefully, it could work. But it all starts with the initial idea. And the initial idea has to be good before we even move forward, because it's just so hard. It's hard to write a song. So we just try to find ways that it feels new to us, and feels like it's not going to be like just like, oh, we're just writing this to, try to feel young again, try to be relevant.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's like a feeling you get. You're just like, no. So, I mean, we just kind of gravitate towards, what we've been doing. And the story with the Valley is really inspiring too, because it's just very like a dense plot, and there's a lot to pull from. I mean, it deals with like the human condition, and just like one story out of just billions, just one man's story out of billions. So it's like you got to think about the man, and think about what he's feeling. It's like he's feeling anger, he's feeling sadness, he's feeling hopeful,
and you can hear it. You can hear all those ranges of emotion in it. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I just want it to be like, want it to feel like a campfire story that, like people like generations and generations before him,
Yeah.
story, I just want it to have that, honesty that, can connect with many people.
The connection part is so cool. And I mean, that's one of my favorite things about music, man, is that like everybody has their own personal experiences and things that they can relate to. And some of the comments that I saw, man, doing the whole reaction channel thing is wild for me, because it was something I started doing during the pandemic, because I thought we were only going to be off tour for a couple months, and then a year and a half later, we're still, I'm at home. But I've met so many wild people, and a lot of the people that have gotten onto my YouTube channel, they're discovering music with me. So I saw a lot of comments, both when I did Orphan and A Blood-Soaked Symphony, were people that took the time to actually read along with the lyrics. Like, there were some like deep emotional comments in response where people were like, dude, after your reaction, I went and listened to this thing just by myself. And it's like, this hit me in personal areas, in the like, I deal with this in my life, and this song by itself is really connecting to me and helping me. And I honestly, I find that so amazing that music can do that for people. And for you guys, it's probably, I mean, that probably feels great knowing that you can do that for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's a great feeling, just like that we have fans, that are like, open-minded enough to embrace the sound, and can actually, see through, the surface, and dig deeper. It's, it's great, because, we work really hard on the music, and we could just, only hope that someone would see it, the way we do. So it's great that that's able to happen. And, Phil's story is just so just so intense. So we just try to, honor it and
Yeah.
the best we could
I
on
mean,
our end.
it is intense and it is personal, but I mean, there's relatable stuff. It's like, I don't want to dig too deep into Phil's stuff because he's done interviews on this stuff before and too, but it's like he has things that he's openly shared in his lyrics and in interviews that like I relate to in specific ways. And I'm just like, so when I watched like a Blood-Soaked Symphony, there were moments where it's like I could feel every ounce of emotion in certain verses that he was putting out because it was like, I've dealt with this. And it's like, I know it's not the same situation, but you
Yeah.
know where that person's coming from. And one of the things I was going to say is like, unfortunately, not all fans are like that. Usually when a band like you for the first time does like clean vocals or something like that, you have the small percentage of the fan base that's like, oh, they're singing. I don't want singing in this
Yeah.
band. Like, but it seems like it's been taken very well over the last couple albums, especially now that Kin is out. Like the response to that seems great.
Yeah. I'm very happy with it. That's what we've honestly always wanted to do. Just be able to write music, without any filters. And, but we've been writing music like with filters, for, over 10 years, like, but prior to when we started, getting more melodic and messing with tempos. So, I mean, it just, just reached a point where it's, you got to take a risk, you got to jump. And, yeah, we did. And, well, it's, with the Valley, we wrote the music first, just kind of as a reaction to Mark of the Blade, the previous record. We didn't know Phil was going to write about, his childhood until after the music was done. And
I was going to ask you about that because I think I saw Phil say that in an interview and I was like, wait, so all the music was done before you guys even knew what you were making it for?
Yeah, he's
wow.
Like, Phil's really good at like seeing, like listening to music and like, coming up with stories and like, I guess, imagery in his head because, he heard, the songs we wrote and that's, that's what he came up with. I don't know how long he had his mother's journal, but I think that was kind of definitely the spark because he found his mother's journal, a bunch of her writings in it. And, thought that would make a great story. And, we kind of wrapped it in like a horror vibe.
I mean, dude, when I finally went back to the Valley, that opener with When a Demon Defiles a Witch is just, I mean, it's amazing to me because that song in particular is one of my favorites on that album because it starts off with the typical Whitechapel sound that I was used to. But when you get to that chorus, I mean, it punches you in the gut, man, especially lyrically when you hear that. But the fact that those clean vocals are in there with Phil's harsh vocals is like, it's such a great touch. And that was like what really intrigued me to hear the rest of the album. And then when a friend of mine was like, did you watch the music video yet? I was like, Yeah. And I sat down with my wife, but without seeing it, and we watched it together. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, dude, if that was like a trailer for a movie, I would absolutely pay money to go see. I mean, that was such a fantastically shot and directed video. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Mathis Arnell shot that and he used to drum tech for us and he did our DVD and he was just, great cinematographer. And, we'd gave him the songs and he came up with a rough like outline. I'd send him some just references of like movies and other music videos, to kind of go off of, and it kind of inspired, certain scenes and certain parts. But yeah, he just took it and ran with it, and yeah, he did fantastic. And he lives in LA and he got some great actors.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that he did that, I really appreciated it in the sense that, like, there are probably some bands that would have been, or directors too, that would have been crazier with it. Like, they would have literally tried to do like, an actual stereotypical CGI demon or something in it or something like that. But the fact
Mm-hmm.
that he shot it with 2 actors made it that much more like creepy. Dude, there were parts of that video where I'm not gonna lie, like I was like kind of in tears because it was just so emotionally gut wrenching what you're watching. And I'm like, man, I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
it's fantastic, man. And you know, even the videos after that, I mean, I had to laugh to myself after I watched Orphan because that was the first reaction to you guys I did on my channel. And I said in the intro to that video, I was like, it's like, yeah, I'm familiar with Whitechapel. I know what I'm going to get sound wise. Like I've listened to this
Yeah.
band a bunch. And then when I started the song, I was just like, what? Like, and
Yeah.
dude, I want to go into you and your parts because when the solo in that song came up, I noticed like, I think I mentioned it in the video, like it wasn't your stereotypical metal solo. To me, that solo was way more inspired by just vibey rock and roll, man. It was a super tasteful solo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That solo, yeah, kind of like humming it. I like solos like you can sing back.
Yeah.
It's like I think a lot of people miss the point when they just try to just rip over a solo. It's more of like just, hey, look what I can do. Um,
I've said that a million times about so many guitar players.
yeah, so I like a solo. So like I hum the solo in my head. It's kind of inspired by a vocal melody by the band Anathema. It kind of reminded me, the riff reminded me of an Anathema song, and I just tried to try to make it sound like as if Anathema was singing the solo. And then after that, I kind of just winged it in the studio with Mark. The thing is, and Mark, our producer, he's a great guitarist too. So he knows if like a lick sounds stock or something. So we just kind of worked the solo until it was finished. But yeah, it all just starts with, the beginning
Yeah.
of the solo, then you just kind of work it until it's done.
And there's, one of the unique things about you guys that you see with some other bands too, but with 3 guitar players, sometimes just listening to the CD, it's a little difficult to know who's doing what unless you have a visual aid with it. But I would assume a lot of those lead parts that I'm hearing were coming from you. And there were a couple specific instances in Kin that I could hear, like, again, like that classic metal or classic rock vibe. I think somewhere towards the end of I Will Find You, there's a held out note that's got like a tremolo on it that just screamed like almost like a Zakk Wylde part, and I was just like,
Yeah.
it's so refreshing to me to hear stuff like that on a metal album like this instead of, like you said, look what I can do, shreddy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I love, it's guitar is the best form of expression. So you just trying to express, sound through it. And it's, music that has emotion and feeling, sticks with you longer than stuff that's, technically impressive.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that Office quote with Dwight and Andy, where Dwight's like ripping on the banjo, and then he's like, "Oh, it's technically impressive, but it lacks soul." And then Dwight just strums some chords, just real slow. But but so I try to like merge both because, I mean, technical stuff, I mean, it's impressive, and it's just, it can kind of infiltrate your psyche.
Yeah.
If it's done tastefully, like in a real cool way. I got some guitar lessons too before I started recording my leads with this guitarist named Jake Sinninger from the band Humphreys McGee.
Yeah.
And he's he's an incredible player. Like, he's like my favorite guitarist. Like, because live he sounds like, all of his solos sound like just like rock god, just of the 70s leads, but they're like all improvised. And he just has so many licks. And like, he told me that like every like solo guitarist should at least have like 50 licks in his back pocket ready to go. So I mean, I just tried to learn as many licks as I could, and so when it's time to like record, I could kind of go off the cuff and see what I can do. Cause, I really like that spontaneity of solos. I don't like working out solos before I go in the studio. I like that spontaneity because there's something to it. There's like it's bottled and it's just capturing lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and it is. It's like it's the feel and the emotion in that one take you're doing it that might produce gold. Like you said, just lightning in a bottle. That's wild. I like you bring up. I love the fact that you just admitted like you got guitar lessons before this album because I've told this to many people. Like, a lot of people that want to learn guitar or are learning guitar always ask. They're like, what can I do to get better like really fast? And I'm just like, dude, these professional musicians that you guys look up to and like, they never just got to a point and decided I'm good and stopped. They still take lessons. They still practice nonstop. Like when I first came to Nashville, I was living in an apartment with Joe Rickard, who used to be the drummer for Red, and then he was with In Flames for a minute. Now he's session drumming in LA and stuff. And when we lived together, he put his drums in a storage unit by our place down in like Nolensville, and he'd go in there and literally play drums for like 5 to 7 hours a day. Like,
Wow.
it was like clockwork. It was like work. It was like, all right, dude, I'm going to go practice for a while. And I'd see him later that evening. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that a lot of these professional musicians still do that I don't think people realize they actually do.
Yeah. Cause do you want to listen to a band that's like practices sometimes?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I want to listen to fucking masters, of their craft. If I'm buying a record, I want it to be good. I want to know that I'm money well spent. I want to go on a ride. I mean, it's like, life's too short to, waste your time with, people that are just half-assing it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've seen it in bands I've worked for or that I've been on the road with, and I've seen it's like you'll get that occasion where you'll have like a 5-piece band and like 4 of them are really good, and then the one of them is just kind of skating by, and you're like, how are you still in this band? Like these guys are like practicing in the dressing room for hours a day, and like what's going on here? But it's nice to hear that directly from you that like still years and years later playing guitars and putting out albums, you're still learning.
Yeah, but different people bring different things, I guess,
True.
in bands.
Yeah, very true.
You could get different perspectives. And it's good to have different perspectives too, because I mean, you could be a sick guitar player, but if you don't listen to anybody's critiques or you just block yourself off from the outside world, you're only gonna attach to people that that only like that sort of thing, and you're not really getting universal with it. You're not like connecting to the human condition really. So
it's the same thing.
I mean, it's just each person's different. I think everybody can make music. It's starts with with me it starts with just a simple idea, and you just kind of build off it, and everyone has their own life experience. Everyone, there's something to be learned from everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I've seen that in the crew world too. I mean, I've been on tours where we've had like world-class crew members or like audio engineers or something out with us, but it's like, while they're really good at their job, going off what you were saying with guitar players, it's like they're insufferable to be around. They won't work well with others and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've seen people get replaced on tours like that. And it's the same thing with bands, man. It's like, you don't have to I mean, it's a great point that you actually brought up. It makes me feel like I was unfair for saying that, because when I was in my band, I wasn't the most technical player in the world. Like, I was just a pocket bass player, but there were other things outside of performing and doing stuff that I had a lot of input on and stuff like that. So it's a good point.
Being a nice person goes a long way.
Yeah. I mean,
nice.
I've told people a million times, I honestly think that, like, at least on my end, what I've been doing, like, as a roadie, like, we always joke and say that, like, 25% of being on the road is how good you are at your actual job. And the other 75% is how you treat other people, how you work with other people, and how your vibe to be around is, like, because you have to live together on tour.
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial. Like, yeah, seriously. I mean, you nailed it.
Yeah. So one of the other things I found really interesting, before we wrap this up, is you're playing PRS guitars, Paul Reed Smith, for anybody that isn't familiar, and it's
Mm.
not unheard of to see metal bands playing PRS, but it was surprising to me to see a band of your stature, like with the sound that I was used to, playing PRS. And I'm just kind of curious because I know, most of you guys. I think Alex still is, but I know. Were you all with ESP at one point?
Yeah, yeah, we were.
So what intrigued you to move over to PRS?
Well, because we were with ESP for, I mean, they were the first company that gave us an endorsement and gave us free guitars, and we are just like, yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah.
take some free guitars. And so we were with them for a long time, and we had signature guitars with them during Armless War, and then once they stopped making the signature guitars, um, we thought that would be the perfect time just to move on, try something else. And I've always been a fan of PRS. Some of my favorite players play them, and they just have this, I don't know, just integrity about them, and they always want to try new things. And yeah, so me and Gabe moved over there. Gabe got a contact to PRS, and then I emailed him, told him I wasn't, I was free to, and yeah, and super cool guy that I talked to over there named Rich Hannon,
Oh, I've
and
met Rich.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and Paul, man, he's brilliant. Like how often do you have the owner who started the company still like involved in
Yeah.
the company? Like, man, he's so like interested in like furthering the brand. Like he has these awesome guitar stands now that are like floating. It's like I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. I can't remember whose post it was recently, but somebody on Instagram like posted like oh, and Paul Reed Smith delivers you your own PRS guitar. It was like backstage at a show or something. And I was like, that's insane
Yeah,
that the owner of the company that's literally the master luthier behind everything is
yeah,
still hand delivering guitars to the artists that are using them.
yeah, man. Yeah, he's crazy, man. He's like one of a
Yeah.
kind. He has a TED talk that kind of goes through. It's like 19. There's like 19 elements that go into making the perfect playing guitar, and he like talks about it, and it's really interesting.
Oh, that's
But
wild.
Emil Wursler told me a story about, because he knows him real good. He's been with Paul Reed Smith for a while, but Paul took a 60s Stratocaster, like $500,000 guitar, maybe 50s or something, and he just sawed it in half just to like see, how the neck was on the inside, and just to see like, just to get that, just to make sure how he
Yeah.
knew every bit of what makes that guitar play so great.
Oh, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so impressive to me because like I've explained to people on my channel a lot, like when I tell them I'm a guitar tech and they're like, oh, so you could like build a guitar. I'm like, big difference. Like, somebody like Paul Reed Smith, who's a master luthier, like he'll build you a guitar. I can fix, rewire, stuff like that. But there is a big difference between your luthiers and your techs that are on the road. And some of the techs on the roads probably have luthier experience, but the stuff that Paul has done with guitars is so impressive to me. And that story you just said is just like,
Yeah.
it's just like, like, it's like he doesn't even care about like money or anything. It's just like, yeah, I want to know how they did this.
Yeah. He's just, passionate, and it's so cool. So cool to be a part of it. And I've never met him, but, I deal with Rich, but yeah, I would just love to one day. And it's, everyone that, over at Paul Reed Smith, stays over there for a reason, because they
Oh
are
yeah.
just
They've had the
really cool
same, they've had
company.
a lot of the same A&R people there for years. Like
Hmm.
the woman that I used to deal with like 12 years ago for an artist that I was teching for is still there now. Like a lot of those people have been with that company forever. When you're touring, have you guys moved on to digital, or are you still rocking tube amplifiers and stuff on the road?
We play Kemper.
Okay.
The Kemper, yeah. So we kind of started playing it like whenever it came out, like in 2011. Like once we figured out you could like kind of take your favorite tones, and as long as you know what you're doing, you can mic it up and have them like sound consistent every night on the road. I mean, that was just a game changer for us.
Yeah. Dude, when we switched to digital on the road, I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those guys that was like, all I knew was tube amps and speaker cabinets and stuff. And when management was like, "Hey, we're going to fractals next year, so you need to learn that," and I was like, "No," I was like, "This is gonna take the feeling out of the playing and blah blah blah." And the first time we ever set them up and used them, I was like, "Okay, I like this. This is cool." Like,
yeah, because we go like direct into the front of house speakers, so it's like you got that. You kind of have that pushing of the the front of house speakers, whereas with a tube amp you'd have to mic it, and kind of goes through. You hear all the other sounds from what's going on. But
yeah,
I mean, I love tube. We record using tube amps. I mean, there's nothing like it. Like, because like in recording, like we use really hot pickups to Marzio deactivators, and like sometimes it'll clip if we use like a digital amp. It'll clip. But if you just like plug it into a tube amp and crank it up and mic it, like it won't clip, and you could just have just a sweet saturated tone.
Yeah.
That you can't get with a digital. So it's just, I mean, it works for us. We got a lot of guitar players, so it's like,
yeah, I'm sure it's nice having a quieter stage too. I mean, that's the one big thing I noticed right away. The first show we ever did when I was in Guitar World working on stuff during the show, I was like, it's so quiet now. Like there's no amps pointed towards me ripping the whole time. Like, it's great.
And you can control it. Like, since we have so many guitars and stuff, it's like, we, as guitar players, you like, no one's looking, you might turn your amp up a little bit. Like I can't hear myself.
Yeah.
So we don't have any of that. We just have the front of house control it, how our volume, and like we control our own in-ear settings. So it's like we all in our own world. We're all happy. No one's getting frustrated.
Yeah, dude. It's so many times on my last tour. Like I teched for two guys, the main artist and then his lead player, and we'd be in the middle of sound check, and the front of house engineer would be like, get in the talk back and be like, "Hey, can you bring his amp down just a little bit?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem, and I'll turn it down." And then like 2 seconds later, the guitar player will walk back over to me and be like, "Hey, after sound check, turn that back up." Like, it's always, everybody's always trying to turn up over each other and stuff like that. It's great, man.
Yeah.
And on my end, the digital stuff, I mean, I think, for the bands, it's great because of the reasons you said, but for the crew, I mean, even when we do fly dates and stuff with that stuff, I mean, it's like a 10-minute setup max. Like,
yeah.
And it doesn't take up a ton of room in a trailer or a semi or anything. It's, somebody asked me recently if I think digital is going to like completely phase out tube amplifiers someday. And I don't think completely. You're never going to see that. But I do think the digital is quickly becoming like the touring standard. I mean, everybody's running some kind of digital rig now.
Yeah. For us, going to Europe, it's like great because we could have the same tone in the US as Europe, and you don't have to deal with like rental companies
backlining and
like tubes might be bad in the amp you have, and it's just, you got to worry about getting tubes, and it's just just want to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
It's just but the big amp companies, it's, I mean, the, what's that, the something in the, I don't know, there's a saying, the proof is in the pudding or something, it's like you got like Mesa Boogie and Marshall, and just stuff that puts out quality, standard amps, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I guess there's smaller, like Paul Reed Smith's actually making amps too. I
don't think I've ever heard one. Have you?
Yeah, I have one.
How is it? Do you like it?
Yeah, it's killer. It's like,
nice.
yeah, you got clean and distorted tones, and yeah, it's tube.
Nice.
And yeah, he also has an amp called the HX something, but it's like it kind of models after Jimi Hendrix's amp during Woodstock,
Oh, nice.
like a cab. So it's like, and you got companies like that. I mean, so I think, I mean, it'll work. I mean, smaller clubs too. I think smaller clubs, real amps work like beautifully
Yeah.
because
And realistically too, not every single band is going to be able to afford a digital rig. I mean, you've still got your bar bands and your club bands and stuff like that are just coming up that they're still rocking amplifiers,
Yeah, and I jam with some buddies here in my garage, and I always use tube amps because it sounds great.
Nice.
Playing
awesome.
And so
I want to wrap this up because I know you got some busy stuff going on and stuff like that. But before I let you go, I always like to ask this question just for the people that are watching, because I like to give them a good behind the scenes on this. What is the best way, in your opinion, as somebody in the band, that fans can support you in this day and age? What would you recommend to somebody that wants to support Whitechapel? What would you recommend they do? What's the best way to support you guys?
Coming to a show and buying merchandise. And buying like the record, you just buying merchandise. Like we've since the pandemic, we've kind of transferred over to like a merchandise company. Like we just want to put out stuff that we would wear ourselves. So we take our pride in our merch. Like every piece of merch goes through us, and we all approve of it.
Nice.
And so now it's like we just want it to be connect with us with the music just too, and just kind of make it one thing. And we control our Instagram ourselves. We don't have any outside companies, so we're all hands on with everything we do. And just buying merchandise, and coming to shows, because like going to shows, like attendance, that helps get us bigger tours. Like if because like at the end of the day, it's all numbers. It's like booking agents look at like how you did in LA the last time you played, and then that determines how much value you have in the industry. So
we're not going to know for a couple days now because it hasn't been a full week yet, but like I'm curious to see where Kin places on the Billboard charts, because I've on my channel specifically, I recently did a video explaining how pre-orders actually help bands, other than just financially, like what it does for numbers and what it does for stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see, at least I've seen, and I'm not trying to say this is directly because of me, but like we're starting to see more pre-orders again. Like we're getting bands that are placing on charts that haven't before on first week pre-order sales. Like Orbit Culture, perfect example. They've never even been to the United States, and their EP that came out a couple months ago hit like 3 Billboard charts from their pre-order numbers. And
wow.
So I'm very curious to see where Kin places on this cycle, because like I know your last couple did very well too, but to the merchandise point, I just want to stress for people that are watching, like how important that really is, because like bands survive off merchandise on the road. And coming from me, I was a merchandise guy for years before I was guitar teching. Like that's one of the best ways to directly give money to the band. Go to the merch table, hand their merch guy cash, buy a t-shirt.
Yeah, buy a shirt. We try to have as many like little people like options. We always have like little things like patches and just a nice assortment of stuff. So that's fun too. That's another creative venture in the band that I've really come to love in recent years. Just having cool like merchandise and a cool visual identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that the music's written, I could focus on that, and I could collaborate with other artists, and yeah, it's great. And then the story we have with the Valley and Ken, it's like it's fun, just kind of brainstorm about, visuals regarding that aspect. And
Yeah, probably allows for some cool ideas for you guys for merch stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Well,
all fun. I got like a notebook too. I like write, drawings and stuff, and I'll send it to I have a friend, Sean Cummings, who that I collaborate with. He's a tattoo artist in Philadelphia. And so me and him just riff, it's like visual riffing rather than, guitar riffing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you very much for giving me some of your time. Once again, congratulations on releasing such a fantastic album this past week. For anybody watching that's not aware, Kin from Whitechapel is available everywhere now. And I would highly suggest you check it out because I love it. But man, thank you again. And yeah, maybe I'll see you around town sometime. If you ever need any guitars to get worked on, let me know. I got nothing really going on right now.
Yeah, hell, I actually might. I've got got an amp needs to be worked on, but yeah, we'll trade info and stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. Awesome. Well,
yeah,
dude,
so thank you, for the time,
dude. Absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys as artists are always busy, so thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful evening, man.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
Awesome.